Hello everyone and welcome back to another Astroneer video, this time covering a little bit more of a peculiar topic on the timing of auto arms. And the reason I'm deciding to talk about this today is because I've had a few people ask me a couple of questions on it, so I figured I might as well just share a bit of my thoughts and some cool techniques, and hopefully they can find it useful, and maybe other people along the way might find that it helps with some of their projects. Now, auto arms themselves, what I have set up in my first example, is a segment pin that will trigger the first auto arm, and then a delay repeater that after 25 ticks will turn off the auto arm. And this actually works out very nicely because 25 ticks appears to be slightly less than the total time needed to move a resource. So as it is finishing up the animation for placing the Astronium, this delay repeater actually turns it off, which, as I said, is beneficial because it guarantees that the auto arm will be in the off state facing to the direction that it placed a resource. If it's not, this will help actually sync up the auto arm so that it always ends up concluding in the same position. Now, one of the other interesting questions that I had a little bit frequently was how can you actually speed them up? Are there any games you can play with turning them off, turning them on, and all that type of stuff? Unfortunately, as far as I can tell, you cannot, but you can always use more auto arms. You can do this clever stacking technique to get two auto arms in the same location, as long as they are powered, have the same cable pins going to both of them. Then you can basically control them as if they were one auto arm carrying two resources at a time, which is pretty beneficial. Now, naturally, you can also turn them on and leave them on, but just for demonstrating an infinite cycle, I can attach it to another delay repeater on a 25 cycle delay, and that will re-trigger the initial button to cause everything to basically repeat infinitely. Again, I know that you can just turn the arms on, but for some reason, if you need to break this cycle for some particular reason, or you've got something else going on, it's not a bad idea just to be aware of the fact that you can control it like that as well. Now, the other interesting thing that I do want to talk about is how can you actually move auto arm or move resources for a specific number. And that's exactly what I have set up over here. Now, this should look pretty similar where we have a start button, we have our two delay repeaters both on 25 ticks, and this power switch power sensor, is basically going to take over the role of the initial button that we saw over there, where we're going to receive power, we're going to then trigger our auto arm to turn on, as well as our delay repeater, which after 25 cycles will turn our auto arm back off. And this will also trigger another delay repeater that will eventually restart our cycle. So what are these switches doing? Now, if you guys remember from any circuitry videos, two power switches in series effectively acts as an AND gate, where both of them need to be on in order to actually trigger the power sensor. So if I turn that off and I turn that on, nothing happens. It only triggers when they're both on. And what do we do for the first switch? This is what I am calling our enable switch, where we allow the entire circuitry to work only if this switch is on, and that is triggered by just pressing a button. This is our start button, which will open that up. After a specific amount of resources move, which you get to select between, I'm going to choose 5 for this example, it will turn the enable switch back off, preventing all of this circuitry from working. Now, the other switch is effectively going to act as our individual resource switch. Now, it's going to start in the on position because when I trigger this switch to start everything, we receive power through immediately and we can get everything going. Now, this power sensor is going to, as I said, log a resource. So every time this power sensor receives a signal, we're going to track the fact that we are moving a resource. It will trigger our delay repeater, which will turn off our auto arm after the power sensor turns on the auto arm. I should have said that first. And it's also going to turn off this switch. And the reason we're going to turn off this switch is because we need to have the ability to turn it back on in order to start another cycle. Because if we turn this switch back on while this is still open, we will begin another cycle and move a second resource. If this switch closes, we need to turn the switch back on just so that we're back in this initial restart state, so we can always use this without having to do any manual work. So as we progress down these delay repeaters, as I said, the first delay repeater just turns the auto arm off after 25 cycles, makes sure that it's facing to the placement side just to guarantee it's going to be a constant reset. And then the second delay repeater, as I said, is our reset. It allows the cycle to trigger again, and this just basically opens up this switch. So we can view this in operation by pressing our button repeater. It will go pretty quickly just because, again, of the nature of things. But as you can see, when our reset happens, we open up this switch and immediately close it again because of the power sensor. We log our resource, start our timer on turning the auto arm off, reset, turn the auto arm on with the power sensor, turn it off with the first delay repeater, and then toggle our cycle again. And now as we're starting to get up in our resource counters, once this resource counter hits 5 on the next cycle, it closes our enable. So we no longer can start the cycle again. So after this delay repeater runs out, we see it open back up and we don't do anything because we are stopped. And as you can see, we moved 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 resources over. It's just a little bit messy because we were also feeding from over here, but taking from this pile over here, we did move 5. And just as a pure demonstration, say we only wanted to move 3 of them, we can once again change our delay, our count repeater, repress our start button, we move 1 resource, here comes the second resource, and then the final 3rd resource. And then as soon as this resets, nothing will happen because we closed our enable and we are back in the state that we started in. So that's kind of all I have really to show. Again, I know this was a little bit more of a targeted application for auto arms, but I figured it might be kind of interesting just to chat about real fast, and hopefully you guys might get some insight on it and it might be useful for a project or two. But overall, these are pretty much some of the best ways I found that you can control an auto arm. There's nothing too special going on. It's kind of just some minor circuitry stuff, which once again, I hope that you can use as some inspiration if you need it. So thank you all for watching. Hopefully you guys have a good rest of your day, evening, and or night. And hopefully we'll be able to see you in the next video. So until then, take it easy everyone, and have a good day.